Chapter 6. Hope shared is hope multiplied. Sometimes, the greatest proof that you've healed is your willingness to help someone else heal. Sunday morning arrived with golden sunlight spilling through the curtains. For the first time in a long while, Daniel and Grace weren't rushing. They ate breakfast together, laughed over burnt toast, and smiled at the simple realization that peace had quietly returned to their home. Not because life had become easier, but because they had learned to face it together. As they prepared for church, Grace looked at Daniel and smiled. You know what? I missed this. What? This version of us. Daniel reached for her hand. So did I. After the service, they walked towards the parking lot when someone called Daniel's name. He turned to see a young man hurrying towards him. Daniel, do you remember me? Daniel searched his face, then smiled. Michael. Michael had once walked under Daniel several years earlier. He looked different now, older, more tired. Beside him stood his wife, Sarah. She smiled politely, but her eyes told a different story. Eyes that hadn't rested in a long time. After a few minutes of conversation, Michael hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. My wife and I. He glanced at Sarah. We are struggling. Daniel remained silent. Michael continued. We don't fight that much. Grace exchanged a glance with Daniel. She had heard those words before. Michael searched for the right words. I don't know how to find each other anymore. Daniel took a slow breath. We know exactly what that feels like. The following Friday, Michael and Sarah came to Daniel and Grace's home for dinner. There was nothing fancy, a simple meal, warm conversation, and a table where everyone felt safe enough to be honest. For a while, they talked about work, children, life. Then the conversation grew quiet. Sarah looked down at her plate. I don't think he hears me anymore. Michael immediately answered, I hear everything. Grace smiled gently. No. She shook her head. You're hearing her words. She's asking if you hear her heart. The room fell silent. Michael looked at Sarah. For the first time that evening, he really looked. The tired eyes, the forced smile. The woman he had promised to love, not the responsibilities she carried. The woman. Daniel stood and disappeared into another room. A moment later, he returned carrying something old, the photo album. He placed it on the table. Michael frowned. What's this? Our story. Page after page, Daniel showed them photographs. The tiny apartment, the old kitchen, the road trips, the birthdays, the laughter. Then he stopped on a recent family photo. It looks like everything was perfect, Michael said. Daniel smiled sadly. It wasn't. There were days I almost lost all of this. Sarah looked surprised, but everyone thought you two were the perfect couple. Grace laughed softly. We became very good at smiling for pictures, but healing didn't begin until we stopped pretending. The evening stretched long into the night. No one wanted to leave, not because every problem had been solved, but because hope had entered the room. Before leaving, Sarah hugged Grace. "Thank you." Grace smiled. "I didn't do anything. You listened." Sarah's voice cracked. "I forgot what that felt like." Later that night, Daniel and Grace sat on the back porch, the same porch where weeks earlier they had read his father's letter. Daniel looked up at the stars. "Funny, isn't it? What is? I used to think success meant people admiring my career." Grace leaned against his shoulder. "And now?" He smiled. "If our story gives one couple the courage to keep fighting for their marriage, I'll consider my life successful." Grace squeezed his hand. "I thought your father would be proud of you." Daniel looked towards night sky. "I hope so." A few days later, Grace received an unexpected phone call. It was Sarah. She sounded different, lighter. "Guess what?" She laughed. "What?" "Michael came home early yesterday." Grace smiled. "Really?" He turned off his phone. "He cooked dinner." Sarah laughed. "It wasn't very good." Grace laughed with her. "The food isn't the important part." "I know." Sarah paused. For the first time in months, we talked, real conversation, no blaming, no shouting, just honesty. Grace ended the call with tears of gratitude. Sometimes, healing spreads quietly, one heart at a time. Lesson of the day. The strongest testimony of a restored relationship is not perfection, it's transformation. People who have walked through pain often become the safest place for others to find hope. Your scars don't have to remind you where you broke. They can remind someone else where healing is possible. That evening, Daniel returned home carrying a small envelope. Grace looked at him curiously. "What's that?" He smiled. "It's an invitation." "To what?" Daniel handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside was an invitation to speak at the annual marriage retreat hosted by their church. Grace looked up in surprise. "They want us?" Daniel nodded. "They heard our story." Grace smiled through tears. "Do you think we're ready?" Daniel gently took both of her hands. "A few months ago, I would have said no. But now, I don't think they're inviting perfect people. I think they're inviting people who choose not to give up." Grace rested her head against his shoulder. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The invitation lay between them, not as a reminder of who they had been, but as a glimpse of who they had become. And at that moment, they realized something beautiful. Their greatest chapter wasn't behind them. It was still being written. That final chapter begins with one simple question. What does happily ever after really look like?